My name is Diane Severino, and I was born in Brooklyn, New York, in Coney Island, by the sea. See the sea behind you? It looked nothing like that. And my upbringing and my dance training was in Brooklyn in the early days. And through the dance world is how I got introduced to Ron Fletcher. Introduced, not the right word. I got to Los Angeles, I married out here, and was looking to expand my dance classes. I was always a dance teacher. And I knew Ron's name from the dance world, from Ice-Capades and from a few Broadway shows. And I had a girl that was taking my class and knew I wanted to expand and said, there's a dance studio upstairs from where I get my hair done. It was a beauty parlor called Aida Gray. So one day I took myself to Beverly Hills on Rodeo and Wilshire, walked up, had my attaché case with my resume in it, and walked in and went, oh my God, it's a Pilates studio. I never had any introduction to Pilates, even though I knew about it from the dance world. But what I knew about it was that it was for injured dancers. And I never had an injury. Unbelievable, but I didn't. Had great dance training as a child. I think that attributed to it. And went up, and Ron was there, and introduced myself to him, and I took out my resume, and it was like a meeting of souls. Seriously, that sounds really like airy-fairy, but it's not, because my resume was the background that he had. We had very close connection with our teachers. The Graham connection, and just on and on and on. He was astounded. So that right there, for him reading who my teachers were, was very important. And we gabbed and talked and gossiped about the dance world. And he said, well, obviously it's a Pilates studio, but so nice to meet you. Maybe we'll do lunch. Great. I go home to the San Fernando Valley, where I still live, in Los Angeles. And about an hour later, the phone rang, and it was Ron. Ron, hi. Wasn't that fun? I'm so happy to meet you. And he said, I don't know what I was thinking. Would you like to teach this work? I went, okay. So I made an appointment with him the next day, and 4 days later, I was on staff. Now, that's very unusual now with the training thing, so it was the way it was done back then, where you really just apprenticed and picked up. Now I'm an easy study because I was a dance teacher since I was 14. And a lot of the correct alignment, though Pilates is unto itself, it matched the way I was correctly taught as a kid. So I sort of got it. Also at the studio, on the ceiling, were all of the exercises. So even though I jumped in, I had, not Ron taught me, but Buddy, who was one of his teachers there, 4 days of classes, and then they cut me loose. And if I ever had to remember an exercise, I would just say, and then we do heels next. So I was able to teach from that day on. Now, there was a rite of passage that they did when you were a new teacher. They gave you all the beginners. Hell, okay? Hell. One after the other. I'm telling you, a week of beginners, an 8-hour day, you knew how to teach the Pilates work. And so that was my entree. That was 1973. Good Lord, the numbers are getting bigger. 1973. And just Ron was magnificent to work for, really. He was, of course, a movement genius. He was the creative. But I think sometimes there's a misconception that Ron changed the Pilates work. Not so. On the wall of the studio was the classic machine workout pictures of Joe himself. You know all the ones I'm talking about, the black and white ones with him in the trunks. And Ron learned the work from Joe. He didn't deviate from it. It was what we were teaching our students, which were the who's who of Beverly Hills, the ladies that lunch, the society ladies. The actors and actresses came in droves to the studio. And then you're just regular pedestrians. And everybody was treated the same at the studio. The high standards applied to everybody. Everybody was ready to go at their appointed hour, an hour session, an hour workout. It was all done individually. But again, they were proactive because of that work on the ceiling. I'm almost pointing up to Ron, too. Hi, Uncle Ron. I called him Uncle Ron because, yeah, I called him Uncle Ron forever. So everybody had a focus, and we didn't coddle them. We really made sure that they did the work correctly, and they were, you know, we would walk the room and make sure everybody's, you know, alignment and everything was correct and done well. They had their session on the machine, and then there was always the mat work that went along with that. So a lot of the rumors are that Ron deviated and changed stuff. Not so. I mean, everybody knew. I still to this day can go through the Pilates mat work beautifully. It's brilliant. Hard as hell, but... And everybody had to work. We didn't give them the whole thing because we had an hour session, so there was about 12 exercises that they had to do in conjunction with the machine. In the early days, there wasn't a studio space for the class work. So that's where I think people misunderstand what Ron did, but in the beginning of the studio days, there was no space. It was only machines, trap table, petty pull, big and little barrels. Everybody went through all of the equipment the way Ron had been taught from Joe, and we then translated that to our students, and they had a very solid background in the correct way to work, which is why all of the entertainers came to us, because when you do the Pilates, Ron Fletcher work correctly, it sticks to your bones. You can go out on location and come back after a 3-month shoot, your strength will be gone, but the look will hold itself. So it was very popular with the entertainment crowd. I mean, we had more movie stars than like the back lot of Universal. Everybody came. There's a laundry list I could bore you with everybody that came to us, you know. Talk about having, you know, keep your ego in check. Can you imagine looking at all those Hollywood beauties at like 7:30 in the morning and the sun was like hitting them perfectly like a key light, you know? You had to be really secure in that studio, let me tell you. But everybody was really great. I mean, everybody left their egos at the door. The studio was so supportive, and they were supportive of Ron and all of his staff. They treated me wonderfully. And a lot of those movie stars became my friends, and I slept over at their houses, you know, and it was just wonderful, wonderful place to work. At the studio, the other teachers that work with me was Ron's nephew, Richie. He was there. Buddy Sperber. Then I brought on my friend Michael Podwall, who was known from the dance world, and Carol Monaco. Now, Michael Podwall and Carol Monaco and I kept the studio going after Ron decided to disband the Wilshire studio and move on to teaching his seminars and to not have his 9-to-5 job. Those are the main teachers I remember. There was Ingrid, and but pretty much that was the mainstay of our group. Everybody had their own talents. Richie was a big buff. You know, he was Ron's nephew. Actually, John Battles, Ron's partner in life. And he didn't come from the dance world, but Ron trained him meticulously. He moved beautifully. But he had the draw because he was buffed and spoke well, and the gals loved him, you know, so he had his draw. But he had more of a dance background in ballet, and he was the son of a doctor and was very articulate and spoke anatomical words like deltoids and rhomboids, and, you know. So I had an education with him because I didn't have any anatomy when I was in school. And then, of course, Michael Podwall, coming from, again, the same background as Ron and I, just ate the work up and just took 3 classes and, again, was starting to teach. I mean, but we had the similarity because we know what Ron was talking about because we had the same teachers. And Carol Monaco came from Los Angeles, from the ballet world. And she came aboard, and we all worked marvelously together, so well together, Carol, Michael, and I, that we begged Ron if we can continue his name. This goes back to about 80, 81. And since the studio was disbanding on Rodeo, could we please keep the name going? Ron Fletcher Studio for Body Contrology. There was no Pilates in the name. But that was the old moniker that Joe had, you know, as sort of the subheading of what Pilates was the Studio for Body Contrology. And so we kept that name with Ron's permission, and we opened up our first studio near the Beverly Center on 3rd Street. And we kept the studio going for over 20 years. Carol left and opens her own studio, which she still has now in the San Fernando Valley. And Michael and I were together 20 years, sharing the same checkbook, and never had a fight. We were like perfect together. We were like so perfect. So Carol sort of branched out and retained her studio, and Michael and I kept the Ron Fletcher Studio for Body Contrology for 20 years. So we kept his name and legacy alive. And Ron was never intrusive. I mean, he trusted us with the work, which we, you know, carried on. And that's how we are now. Now, I remember when Ron started the class work and developed the towel work. It started when he broke through the wall where we just had the room with the machines and was able to utilize this glorious space that was just a storage room that the beauty parlor Ada Gray had. Once we broke through that room, we had space. We could move. So Ron started classes. It was as simple as that. It was, the opportunity was that he had a place to lift his arm up and take it to a floor class level. So then it transferred. Remember I said earlier that the students were doing the mat work because that just required a small amount of space and just timing. So they did their 45 minutes and then their mat work. But now we can get a lot of people in during an hour slot, and Ron could teach a group of people. It was very successful. And it was just fantastic. It was a real classroom situation. He approached it, you could almost say it was like a dance class of sorts, but it was not a modern dance class. It was Ron's work and his accumulation of his movements that his teachers has passed down. A little bit of Graham, but it was not a Graham class. And because Ron was a choreographic genius, he could invent a piece of movement in 3 minutes. I mean, it was unbelievable. And because we had the same students there so regularly, he could build upon a piece. We could start out something if he was just trying to get the muscles to respond, and then take it a step further on the next class. Then one of the things that always drove him and all of us teachers crazy is that if anybody lifts their arm and it just looks like just stupid, shoulder up, no lats, no freedom in the shoulder girdle. And Ron was getting so sick and tired of everybody not getting it, that he said, okay, everybody, you got your towel. And Ron always provided towels. Ron actually took the towels home every night and washed them. I mean, we're very homespun, even though we were on Rodeo in Wilshire. So everybody grabbed the towel, and he literally just started, you know, pulling it apart with the breath. You know, Ron, of course, invented the percussive breathing. That was his departure from the original Pilates work, because Joe just said, breathe in with the good, out with the bad. So Ron just started with the towel, you know, and then, you know, took it to another level. And he just started improvising it, and then a little bit higher, you know, and a little bit back. And, you know, and he started creating this whole class on this. At first, it wasn't a whole towel class. It was just introduced within the class format. But then he started, again, because his creativity was so large, that he was able to get his own syllabus going and have an hour workout there where he, you know, did turn to the backs and he did laterals and, you know, and everybody was going, oh, I love it. The Pilates made my body better, but I like the way this feels, and my arms are toning up and my chest is opened up, you know. And so he created this whole syllabus class of the towel work, and it's quite challenging and quite beautiful. So now Ron, this is the era, it's about in the 80s, maybe mid-80s. And again, Michael and I now own the studio. Carol has her own studio in the Valley. And I've been teaching Ron's work. I was his assistant. I was his right-hand man. I took his class every day at my lunch hour. I just loved his classes and his sense of movement. It was like, this is me, you know. Every day at lunch, I was so skinny then. Anyway, so, yeah, because they gave up my lunch. After Ron left and I was still teaching, of course, and going over the work, I was starting to lose it. Because, you know, we always adapt, and counts get a little different when you're on your own. And I didn't have Ron to sort of remind me of his accents and things. And he came to the studio to say hi. And I said, Ron, I'm losing you in my brain. I am losing it. I really have to notate this, you know. And I think this is important. And a lot of the students that are around really would like something they could work out at home. You know, they miss you as much as I do, you know. We have this marvelous teacher called Bridget that's our manager right now, and she is a dance major and also a film major at UCLA. So I said, if we can get it together, it's not going to cost much. It's going to be a bare bones shoot, you know, just you and me, you know, before I lose all of this, you know. And he said, well, I think we can do that, you know. So Bridget set up a time, and we went to UCLA. She had everything ready to go. It was just a bare studio, and literally, because I was Ron's shadow movement-wise, they just said, and Ron and I did an hour. That was it. No edits. It was exactly what you see on that video, is that one take, and that's Ron improvising and me following him like a hawk. And it was wonderful. In the beginning of the video, he does his, you know, standing, centering, you know, magnets close and girdle up, and, you know, that wonderful stuff, and goes into a little of the towel, which is interesting. You should all watch it, because it shows the early beginning. And those of you that know the Fletcher towel work now, you can see how it's evolved. He was always learning, always doing, always inputting. He got a lot of input from us movers around him. He did like it when Michael and I came to the studio. He could see things on our body that he couldn't really see, not to put anybody else down, but Michael and I, again, we had that same background. So he was developing a lot more movements on our bodies and getting spurred on and getting excited about it. And it was very interesting. Yeah, that's the video. I was fortunate enough to be invited into Ron's world when he got the book account. Lippincott and Company was the publisher, very big company. And they did all these big hardback books. And it was the first celebrity exercise book. It's called Everybody is Beautiful. And Ron asked me to come in. Barbara Wolfson was the photographer. We're still best friends. I just had lunch with her last week. So Barbara was the photographer, and my job was to direct the shoot, the exercises that Ron had determined were going to be in the book. Had no machine work. It was all his movement classes, and it was staged in beginning, intermediate, and advanced work. There was also a section on handicapped people, because Ron did work with Alma, and she had not the use of her legs. So there was a series there. There also was a section on the aged body. And so I'm close to this age, but it seems so, she seems so old. She was a 71-year-old woman. I'm so close to that now, but it was amazing. So there was these sections in it. And so my part in the book was to make sure everybody looked perfectly ready to be shot at that moment. So I directed the shoot. I also helped Ron in formulating the words that went with each of the series of pictures that were laid out. And you can get in really good shape with that book. That book has a lot of information. Goes into all of the percussive breathing and his philosophies. And you dig it up, get it on eBay. It should have gone into a second printing. Lippincott and Company went bankrupt. Now, the tragedy in that is that it didn't go into a second printing. The other tragedy was that in the bankruptcy, they lost the prints. They lost the template, whatever they do, to reproduce the book. We couldn't believe it. It was like, that's bad luck. I mean, that's just bad luck. It just like disappeared. There was no conspiracy, nothing. It's just that the company went belly up and bam. Can't do another printing. 1999, Michael and I had a closeout 3rd Street studio. 20 wonderful years. The building was being sold. Our lease was up. It was sort of this trifecta. Michael's father in Florida was getting elderly. And he decided to move down there to help his dad, God love his heart. And I could not go on without Michael. We were so just the dynamic duo, the two of us. I mean, there was just no way I was going to go solo. And I've had over, you know, at that point, almost like 30 years of teaching the work. So we decided to end the Ron Fletcher Studio for Body Contrology. Michael moved to Florida. I always had a private clientele. So I wasn't left high and dry, you know, though I did walk out with just a little shoebox full of stuff. It's like, I mean, it was like in the movies. This is my life. I gave my life to Ron, and it's a shoebox. But so it was poignant. But I was able to transition because of my private clientele, and also float around. Now I'm a woman without a studio for the first time. I had a parking space and a shower, you know, so that was a little difficult to deal with in a way, because I had my pied-à-terre and, you know. So now I had to, like, be at the mercy of all my friends that had, you know, Pilates studios to come and teach, you know, at their places, which I do. And I still continue to this day, you know. I do float around, and then most of my clients, the private clientele, you know, they're on another stratosphere. So they have their own workout rooms. I have my own showers in these houses, you know. And they're very disciplined, because they just know that the work is work for them so many years. And some of my private students have been with me like 30 years. Yeah, it's amazing, you know. The body doesn't know it's getting old if you keep doing it in the right way. I mean, they're really still doing like 4 springs on leg and footwork, on 2 leg, you know, 3 on single. But I mean, it is interesting to see, and does give one's maturing body hope, because my students are my role models too. I mean, I learned all teachers know that when you teach, you learn so much. And so yeah, I'm very fortunate that I have a very loyal following that still wants to hear what I have to say every week. 3 times a week, God bless them. They're not sick of me yet. It's unbelievable. You know how I learned the mat work? Ron gave me his copy of Return to Life. That's how because this is old school. He didn't just get everything spoon-fed you, you know. You want to learn it, you learn it, you know. Now, me being Diane, having a great background in movement, I took a magnifying glass. I studied those pictures. You know, I read the instructions, and I really woodshedded and learned it on my own to really get the finer points. We had, again, the 12 mat exercises that our students knew: single leg, double leg, yeah, side, you know, side kicks, etc. But some of the other stuff that's in the book, I had to really take my time and learn it on my own body. And so I'm a tangent from the machines, but I pretty much do the whole workout. Abdominals, short spine is delicious. I love short spine. I love them all. Stomach massage, one of the underused exercises. Stomach massage is brilliant. Now Ron was a tall guy, right? You try this when you're on your back. Well, the machines are a little bit different now, but it worked in our old Fletcher machines. So say you're laying on your back in Pilates stance. We called it first position turn out because we came from the dance world. But Pilates stance, right? Like you're doing legged footwork. You come on, you're laying on your back, like you're doing, but you're not pushing back. Your legs are in plie. And then you start to roll up. You take your articulation, you roll all the way up, and what happens? You roll up, you're in the position to do stomach massage. You try that. You try that. Let's see if you don't get a cramp right up here. All right? Stomach massage, brilliant. Now everybody's collapsed. You must be elegant and pulled up, up, up. yeah, not schlumping down. People are still interested in the work. I think they're surprised that it takes such a commitment, and it's a little instantaneous the way this world is now. The long haul seems to, you know, be a little offsetting to some, so there's always going to be a dropout rate. But I see a little more impatience now, and I think people are not as humble as they were when the work first came out, and they think they're going to be better at it quicker, right? I don't know why, but they just are sort of surprised that they're not instantaneously getting the finer points of it. And that seems to create a little bit of frustration. So there's the people that stick and that don't. I think people are doing a lot of stuff now. They are doing so many things. I mean, it's, and I don't even see the bodies looking any better. I mean, they're spinning, they're doing Pilates, they're taking a yoga class, they're doing TMX or whatever, they're hanging from the ceiling, you know. It's like, geez, I mean, how much, why? You know, that I see is different. You know, but yoga, and don't get me wrong, yoga and Pilates works beautifully together. And a nice walk is lovely too. But it just seems that people are really, really pounding their bodies, you know. And of course, yeah, I mean, I don't know anybody my age that's still doing the work that would hold up as well. So I caution a little bit about the burning out effect and the wearing and tearing, because the body, you know, dancers went to Pilates because they got hurt. And talk about athletes, dancers are supreme athletes, but the body tears down. So I would caution everybody now to just think lovingly about your body and don't beat it up, you know. I mean, don't be a whack job, all right? When you're doing a machine and when you're doing the floor work, you are moving. You are moving. You are making beautiful patterns in space. Ron, and I agree with it, I don't like the word exercise. Movement is a better way because you are moving. And if you're a man or a woman, I mean, can you make it look elegant? Can you make it look like someone's going to want to watch you push back that machine? Makes a difference on how you move. The body will react to the way the brain is thinking about it. It's not just schlepping back and forth and back and forth. Does it matter how one lifts the arm? Yeah, it matters. Yeah. Who's going to look at that? How you lift the arm, where does it come from? A teacher has to tell you that. It's not intuitive, you know. But there's a reason that hands lifting, there you have to have intent in the movement. It shows in the body, the elegance that it gets, the articulation, and the more integrated body parts when the movement is beautiful. It takes a lot more effort. Not to forget your feet or your hands. The whole body works as a concert. You're not just taking, you know, like your car and taking your fender in and getting fixed. It's the whole that works together. That's when your eye wants to see it. And I don't care. My 8-year-old grandson can walk into a room and see, and the one he's going to look with is the one that looks good doing it for himself. His eye will go to that student. He will focus on that student. The trying, the urgency, the intent. It's important to move correctly and to keep it growing. Always keep it growing. Always. Up. Always. It's too easy to do this. Kiria Savin has created a day with Diane through the Ron Fletcher program of study. And what that is you get me for the day, a class. And I go into a lot of the, so I call myself a prehistoric Fletcher. Go into a lot of the movement history of how some of the movements that the people that are in the program of study are doing it today, but how it started. What was the beginning of that movement like? And it's a full-out class situation, depending on the studio's time and the allotment that they give me. And I take him through Ron's work with, of course, my flavoring. Like I said, you flavor it with who you are, too. But it's a glorious time, and I just enjoy it so much. And it's been quite popular at the Ron Fletcher Program of Study. And A Day with Diane is something that I will continue to do forever and ever. Just take me across the world, you people. And just come through the Ron Fletcher studio and book me, because you'll love it. Everybody's been very happy when I came, and they keep inviting me back. So you should do it too. I loved hanging out with Uncle Ron. We went to a lot of social events together. We went to 1 million dance concerts together. We weren't eater-outers. We didn't do that. We didn't do that, but we did a lot of functions. And we were invited a lot to some of the students, grand students' parties. And he had me as his sidekick date. Always a laugh a minute. We were very funny together. Ron had an extremely good sense of humor. We have classic times that we would just reminisce. You know, and I spoke to him on the phone all the time, as often as, yeah, like at least every other week, you know. I spoke to him and never made it to Austin. I'm so sorry I never got to visit him there. But we spoke on the phone and would reminisce and talk dance and, you know, talk trash, and really enjoyed my times with him. We spent a lot of time together away from the studio. It was really, really special. Yeah, he really shared a lot with me. And I just hung on every word. And he thought I was very amusing, too. So we always had a giggle, you know. And endless great times together. Loved hanging out with him. You know, Ron is so fortunate as a teacher and a dancer that he does have a legacy that people can look up. With Kyria Sabin at the helm, there's an opportunity now to really delve into his work if you're serious about doing it. Also, I'm still on this planet continuing what he started to do, and very passionate about the work. And his book is the archival piece of equipment, reading material. It's very informative, very informative. And his videos, of course. So he's lucky that he has stuff that's documented about him, that people who are interested in his technique, and you all should be. We all should be, you know. When we're talking about the shared tradition, I mean, people should be interested in Ron. A lot of it's hearsay that keep them standoffish, but you have no idea the depth of his work. And all you move is, if you see his work, you'd be shaking your head, yeah. Yes, you get it. I know you do. You would. You know, so I don't know where this sort of, I don't know if we're fractious, but I don't know. I don't know where the rumor started that Ron does this sort of weird stuff. That Ron's not weird. It makes beautiful bodies. He's a great mover. He can move. Oh, my God. I mean, until he was like 85 or more. I mean, he could do a whole full seminar. I mean, there's something to say about his technique, about not breaking another body and keeping it up, you know. But he was a beautiful mover. Like when I was saying before about the intent, your eye goes right to it. It's like, oh, my God, I want to move just like him. Sure you do. So all you people that, you know, think that Ron's, you know, doing something strange there, we're not. We're absolutely not. Got to try it.